The world today is divided between the axis of evil, which is, of course, the global jihadists and the global jihad supported by Iran, and Iran, which is supported by China and Russia. And on the other hand, we have the United States and its ally, the free world, the democracies. So the line here is in Gaza. This is why it is a lot is at stake, and the United States is determined that the Hamas will be defeated in a way that the Nazis were defeated back in 1945. This is why they give us everything that we need.
Good evening and welcome to Jerusalem and a very special edition of the Rosenberg Report. As President Biden today made an historic visit to Israel, even as Jordan's King Abdullah canceled his planned emergency summit in Amman with Biden, Egyptian President el-Sisi, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. We'll look at Biden's visit to Israel from multiple angles tonight, but I want to begin by framing what happened. Look, I don't agree with President Biden on almost any of his domestic or foreign policies, but when he does the right thing, I'm not afraid to say so. And Biden today did the right thing. He became the first American president ever to visit Israel during a time of war. And this gave us a big boost of superpower support when we needed it most. It gave us also a big boost of bipartisan support in the United States, which we also very much need here in Israel. The big question is this, and critics of Biden will say this: will President Biden stick with us through thick and thin? His message today was absolutely that he'll always have Israel's back. But the question remains, if this war drags on, and if or when the media and foreign governments paint us as Israelis as the monsters rather than Hamas, will Biden truly have our backs? What if Hezbollah, directed by Iran, launches a full-blown attack on us from Lebanon? What happens when, not if, the UN Security Council formally condemns us for committing war crimes when we've been the victims of horrific war crimes, very real war crimes, ghastly war crimes in the last 2 weeks? Will Biden truly have our backs? Look, I hope so, and I pray so, but it is an open question, and we're going to see day by day, week by week. That said, there are 3 reasons why what Biden did today was right and good. First, in a world where optics matter, President Biden showed Israelis and our enemies that he stands with the Jewish state. Woody Allen, as I remember it, used to say 80–90% of life is just showing up. Today, Biden showed up.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. Look, folks, I wanted to be here today for a simple reason. I wanted the people of Israel, the people of the world, to know where the United States stands. The terrorist group Hamas has slaughtered, as has been pointed out, over 1,300 people. And it's not hyperbole to suggest slaughtered, and including 31 Americans as part of that. And they've taken scores of people hostage, including children. They're committed evils that and atrocities that make ISIS look somewhat more rational. You know, Americans are grieving with you. They really are. And Americans are worried. Americans are worried because we know this is not an easy field to navigate, what you have to do. But the fact is that Israel, as they respond to these attacks, it seems to me that have to continue to ensure that you have what you need to defend yourselves. And we're going to make sure that occurs, as you know. And we have to also bear in mind that Hamas does not represent all the Palestinian people. And it has brought them only suffering. I want to say to the people of Israel, their courage, their commitment, their bravery is stunning. It's really stunning. I'm proud to be here.
Second, Biden made it clear to the world that it was Palestinian terrorists who bombed that hospital in Gaza last night, not Israel. For the last 24 hours, everybody in the mainstream media, from the New York Times to CNN to Al Jazeera, have been repeating Hamas's lies, that Israel bombed the hospital and killed 500 people. But it was a total lie. Yes, a hospital was tragically bombed, and yes, tragically, lives were lost. Not 500, fortunately, but Israel has released incontrovertible evidence, including audio intercepts and video surveillance footage proving that it was a malfunctioning rocket fired from inside Gaza by one of the Hamas allies, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not Israel, that crashed into the hospital and caused all the death and damage. And that Hamas leaders knew it, but told the media their lies anyway. To his credit, Biden told the truth.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
Third, Biden's visit to Israel today and the hug that he gave Netanyahu on the tarmac sent an important message to the terror masters in Iran that Biden's grievances with Netanyahu have been set aside and that the two leaders are working now closely as partners. What's more, Biden has ordered not one, but 2 U.S. aircraft carrier strike groups into the eastern Mediterranean, giving Washington the military muscle it would need in the region to inflict serious damage on Hezbollah if the situation escalates and a northern front blows up. Good. Look, I'm still concerned with Biden for the way he's worked with the Iranian regime. It feels like appeasement to me. And he's done that for so many years, going back to the Obama-Biden administration. I'm upset with him for pulling all U.S. forces out of Afghanistan on the eve of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks and letting the Afghan government collapse to the Taliban. And for giving Netanyahu, our democratically elected leader, the cold shoulder, not inviting him to the White House all year. Symbols matter. But he did the right thing today, and I'm grateful. And never have Israelis needed bipartisan support in Washington, the world's only superpower, and from the American people more than we do right now. Few people know President Biden and his heart and his thinking about Israel better than Tom Nides, who not only served as the Deputy Secretary of State previously, but more recently, and only a few months ago now, served as Biden's ambassador here to Israel. I've interviewed him before on the Rosenberg Report. I'm glad to have you back. Mr. Ambassador, just talk about your sense of why the president came in a war zone, first American president ever to come to Israel during a war.
Well, first of all, my friend Joel, thank you for having me. As you know, I've been a friend of yours when I was in Israel. I was honored to be on your show, and I'm honored to break bread with you several times. So
very grateful.
Thank you for having me. I think it's important for people to understand when President Biden came to Israel last July, when I was ambassador, for his 10th visit, when he got off the Air Force One and he walked onto the stage and looked into the camera and said the following: "You do not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist." And there's a lot of people who are watching this show right now who actually would say exactly the same thing that Joe Biden said. Joe Biden is a Christian who cares deeply about the state of Israel, cares deeply about the Jewish people. And that's been expressed. This is all him. This is who he is. He is driving this. He's driving the language. He's driving the speeches. He made the decision to go to Israel to first and foremost send a message to the Jewish people that he's with them. He's with the state of Israel. He's got Israel's back. And that's the message he was sending to the community. This is not politics. This is not Democrat, Republican. It's just his commitment to the state of Israel, and he wanted to express it.
Well, I'm grateful because, and I'm grateful for your friendship as well. And I, you know, because we've talked candidly. I have a lot of disagreements with the president, but I am very grateful that he did this, especially at such a time as this. It's very important. But talk about, you know, there have been strains in the U.S.-Israel relationship. Obviously, I mean, in one ways I say, you know, Netanyahu and Biden have had such a strain, even though they've known each other for 40 years and been friends, but not even be invited to the White House for 10 months, and yet they got the bear hug today. So where do you think U.S.-Israeli relations are, and what happens as this war gets worse?
Okay, well, I think as you know, action. You've been around this for a long time. There are theatrics. I'm not suggesting visits to the White House theatrics, because probably Bibi Netanyahu has been to the Oval Office more than any other world leader combined. So there's some theatrics, and which everyone seems to do, and then there's action. Joe Biden's about action. Joe Biden, when the chips were down, still in a very, very, very difficult situation, when the idea that Hezbollah or Iran was thinking about doing some things in the region, which they still may be thinking, it was Joe Biden's decision to send 2 aircraft carriers into the Mediterranean. When the decision was made yesterday, even after all the issues around the hospital that was sadly bombed yesterday, the president got his information and made the decision to still come to Israel. When the decision is about making sure, putting pressure on the Israelis to make sure there's a humanitarian corridor open for the innocent Gazans, and there are many, many, many innocent Gazans
absolutely.
who, by the way, Hamas does not care about,
right.
He made that decision. So the reality of this is his relationship with Netanyahu has, in fact, been 40 years, but his relationship is with the Jewish people. His relationship is with the state of Israel. Yes, does he like Bibi? Does he disagree with Bibi? Bibi is Bibi. This is not about Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is about the Israeli people, and the Israeli people should understand he has got their back.
So one more critical question, because I want to give you enough time to answer it. So he moved 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, as you say, into the eastern Mediterranean. I don't think I can remember that happening since the 1973 war, when we were trying to tell the Soviets, back off, don't get involved with the Egyptians and the Syrians. So that's a big deal. The question becomes, if Hezbollah erupts, is President Biden saying he's actually going to send U.S. forces to attack Hezbollah? Because we've really never seen the United States directly, that I can think of, in a war like that. He didn't say it explicitly here. How do you read all the tea leaves?
As Joe Biden is fond to say, superpowers don't bluff. That'll be a calculated decision that the Iranians and Hezbollah, their proxies, will have to make a decision. Well, let me just tell you something. Joe Biden has said many, many times he has got Israel's back. Those other people out there will have to make that decision, as Mr. Putin has made his decision, to see what ends up happening when superpowers don't bluff.
Okay, so we have about 60 seconds more, so I'll take this opportunity. What's your message as the former ambassador, but a dear friend of the president, and of course, dear friend of the Secretary of State and so forth? What's your message to the Christian community? How can we stand with Israel right now, from your vantage point, Jewish, high-level official in the Biden administration, and somebody who loves Israel so dearly? How can we help?
Listen, to repeating what Joe Biden has said, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. Okay? You don't have to be a Jew to care for the security of the state of Israel. You don't need to be a Jew to denounce the atrocities that Hamas has put upon the Jewish people, the worst since the Holocaust. You also don't need to be a Jew to be sympathetic and concerned about the plight of the Palestinians. Hamas doesn't give a crap about the Palestinians, pardon my French. Doesn't care about the plight of the thousands and thousands of Palestinians who are going to get killed in Gaza because of the actions of Hamas. They don't care. So you don't have to be a Jew. You don't have to be a Christian. You just have to be a human being. It's about humanity. And the people who are watching the show have humanity in their blood. And my view of this is that that's all we need to do. And that's the message I want to send to your community and to all communities.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm so grateful for your friendship, your love, not only for the United States, but for Israel, and for what the president did today. It was historic, it was important, and since no one else has ever done it, no one else can say, oh, yeah, I would have done it. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for coming on the Rosenberg Report tonight. Few people understand U.S.-Israeli relations better than my next guest, Danny Ayalon. I've known him for 20 years. He was the Israeli ambassador to the United States from 2002 to 2006, and those were tumultuous years as enormous amounts of terrorism, intifada. Ariel Sharon, the prime minister, had to invade not only the West Bank, but Gaza. We had the disengagement from Gaza, which was highly controversial. And later, Danny Ayalon became Deputy Foreign Minister for Israel. So, Danny, let's begin on this really historic day with the first time an American president has brought Air Force One inbound during an actual Israeli war with one of our neighbors. How would you assess U.S.-Israeli relations at the moment? We've gone from Biden's snub of Netanyahu not inviting him to the White House for a year almost to the bear hug.
Yeah, Joel, it's much bigger than any personal relationship or any individual, basically. It's about the safety of the world and the future of the United States, Israel, and our allies. So what we see here is a real, true friendship, which also has a lot of strategic thinking behind it, because the world today is divided between the axis of evil, which is, of course, the global jihadists and the global jihad supported by Iran, and Iran, which is supported by China and Russia. And on the other hand, we have the United States and its ally, the free world, the democracies. So the line here is in Gaza. This is why it is a lot is at stake, and the United States is determined that the Hamas will be defeated in a way that the Nazis were defeated back in 1945. This is why they give us everything that we need. We do not need American troops. We have never asked for American troops, but we need the munitions, we need some other military equipment, and also we need the American political umbrella, just as today the United States vetoed another astonishing, morally reprehensible resolution ideas in the United Nations, actually putting on a moral equivalence Israel and its killers.
Yeah. Well, we've got another front, and I'm not even talking about Hezbollah yet. That's a different issue, but the media has really savaged Israel. It hasn't taken hardly any time for us to go from victims of savagery, barbarism, like of ISIS, Nazi style, to the New York Times putting on the front page the lies of Hamas, that we bombed a hospital. Would you take a moment and describe that situation and why that does so much damage to us, even though the evidence is clear that we didn't do it, they did it?
Well, it's more than clear. I mean, it was shown to all the intelligence agencies in the world. It was shown in a very, very methodical manner to the president. The president of the United States said, I saw the evidence. It was done by Hamas. It was a failed launch by Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which is one of their cronies in Gaza.
Right.
We have the evidence. We see the documentation. It's undeniable. So anyone who is even questioning that, I would say not only he is wrong, but almost it's an anti-Semitic thing.
Yeah, but you already see the New York Times, BBC, CNN, I mean, Al Jazeera, of course. It's like, you know, what's the old saying that a lie can get all the way across the world before truth wakes up and puts its pants on in the morning. I mean, it really is a damage to us, making us look like the monsters rather than Hamas.
Well, I think in the short run, maybe, but in the long run, I think that what has happened is that Hamas lost its credibility altogether. The IDF took its time to check and double check and corroborate all the evidence before it came out. It took some time. We lost the first news cycle, unfortunately. But in the long run, we have retained our credibility and our honesty. And I think from now on, people will realize that everything that comes out of Israel is the truth.
Yeah, I agree. And I will just say this. I also think that we have the benefit right now that, even though I have a lot of disagreements with President Biden on a lot of different issues, having a Democrat president who loves Israel, I think he's a bit bipolar, honestly, on his Middle East policy. He's trying to fund Iran and deal with them, but he also does really love us. And I think that is a conflict in him, but not today. And I think that, honestly, if when Netanyahu says we didn't do it, the media doesn't believe him. And if President Trump says it, most of the media would not believe him. I hope that in this particular case, people will listen to President Biden, particularly because he's had a conflict with Netanyahu. Last point, what can Christians do to stand with Israel at this critical time?
Thank you, Joel. First of all, pray. We feel their prayers. We feel this great moral support. And anything else would be something that anyone that can give whatever they can. It could be medical equipment, ambulances. You know that my wife, Anne, which you know very well, is the president of CFMDUA, which is Christian Friends of Magen David Adom.
Like the Israeli version of the Red Cross, yeah.
And any donation there could be $1, it could be $100, or $1,000 or $100,000, would go towards buying more ambulances, more medical equipment, and to help really save lives here.
Thank you, Danny Ayalon. I really appreciate your expertise on a historic day like today.
Thank you. Bless you, Joe.
I'm honored to be joined now by Ruth Wasserman Lande. She is a friend, first of all. I actually first met her in the United Arab Emirates, and then we became friends. She's a member of the All Israel News Advisory Board, but far more importantly, she was a senior foreign policy advisor to Israeli President Shimon Peres. She was a member of Knesset, and she's a good friend and a senior advisor to Benny Gantz, who, of course, is now a minister in the new and national emergency unity government. And I want to start there. Ruth, why did the most popular politician in Israel, the former defense minister, the former defense chief of staff of the IDF, Benny Gantz, who was the head of the opposition, why did he decide to join this emergency unity government?
You know, Joel, we had experienced in Israel on Saturday, October 7th, something that Israel had never, ever in its 75 years of existence experienced before. A carnage, a massacre, gang rapes, beheading of babies, inhumane atrocities that were perpetrated by inhumane creatures, the Hamas operatives who came in purposefully to attack civilians. And after that heinous attack, nothing, but nothing will be the same. It's 20 times, if you relate it to the number of people living in this country, what has happened to the United States on September 11th. It is, it's the Chernobyl of Israel. And nothing will be the same since then. And I want to just bring home one issue. This is not an Israeli-Palestinian issue. It's not an Israel-Hamas war. This is a war of fanatic, extremist Islamists against anybody who wants any kind of normal life, including the West. And they say it out very, very clearly. They say that first it's Israel in the south, then the West Bank, then the Northern Front, then all the Jews throughout the globe, and after that, anybody and everybody who's not a Muslim. And you can see already in European, cities, you have those attacks. They're calling for a world jihad. All of this is masterminded by Iran. So when you ask why former Minister of Defense Benny Gantz would go into the government, it is because nothing like that happened, and Israel needs to be saved. That's why he entered the war cabinet.
Well, I'm grateful that he did, and I'm not making a partisan political point. I'm just saying, in the deeply divided country that we are, Hamas accomplished in one day what no Israeli was able to do all year, to bring the country unified together, the opposition leader, the prime minister, and bring his level of experience into that war. Very small, like 3-4 people in that war cabinet is really, really important. I want to ask you, with President Biden being here today, I think it was very important. We've never seen an American president enter Israel during a war. But how do you think Iran's leadership is viewing this? And do you think Hezbollah is going to open up with Iran permission from Lebanon?
So first of all, I must say that the gestures actually made by President Biden, I believe representing the entirety of Americans, despite, partisan differences, is something that Israel will never, ever forget. It is unquestionable. Not only is he here to send a clear message to our enemies that America stands beside Israel, but also he's actually sending a message to the world that good will overcome evil. This is
I agree.
The issue.
I agree. We've only got about 30 seconds. Do you think Iran and Hezbollah are going to open up against us? I mean, they're already attacking, but full scale.
They're already attacking. The Iranians have a full-blown plan. I have no doubt that the American presence is making them think again. But yes, Joel, unfortunately, I personally do think that they will open a war in the north as well.
All right, I know we only have a few seconds, but let me ask this question. If Iran authorizes Hezbollah to launch a full-blown attack, do you think that Israel should actually hit not only Tehran, but the nuclear sites, and this would be the moment to cut off the head of the snake?
You know, I'm not an expert to give recommendations to our military people. We have the commander of CENTCOM in the country as well. There are enough people understanding in this issue, but I can say this. We are about to eliminate the capabilities of Hamas because we will not have them carnage, massacre, rape, and behead our people anymore at all. And likewise, we will do whatever it takes. If Iran opens a war with us, we will do whatever it takes to make sure that they don't hurt our civilians as well.
Ruth, let's pray that never has to happen. But really, at this point, the whole region could go up. King Abdullah talking about we're on the edge of the abyss. Thank you so much for being on the Rosenberg Report on this historic evening with the president being here.
Thank you very much, and God bless.
It's been a big day here in Israel, as you can see. The president's visit, very, very important, but there's a long road ahead of us, and this war is it's really going from bad to worse, and there is fighting up on the northern border, and there is the real risk that this thing is going to go blow up even further with a full-on war with Hezbollah. Let's pray that does not happen.